Why do you think the provincial NDP is succeeding in areas where the federal branch is struggling?
I'd say we built a strong brand.
Did you
That
see
was
Charlie?
hilarious. Just kind of be like, man, what are you talking about?
He's like, dude, have you checked the polls lately?
Jagmeet Singh started his tour of Northern Ontario today, where he faced questions ranging from dental care to Joe Biden dropping out of the presidential race. Charlie Angus was with him, and he didn't look like he agreed with Jagmeet when he spoke about the strength of the NDP brand.
Let's take a look.
Thank you very much. I'm Sergio with CTV Northern Ontario. This question would be for both of you, I suppose. I'm wondering if you can comment on what appears to be a diminishing legacy of NDP in this area. In particular, I'm sure you know that the Timmins provincially has been NDP for the longest time until the Conservatives took power here. I'm wondering what you think about the federal aspect of it. Pierre Poilievre has been here multiple times. This is, I believe, your first time here since 2018. What do you think that says about the legacy of the NDP in this area?
Jagmeet's first time there since 2018.
Wow.
6 years, and the report says, and Pierre's been here multiple times.
Well, and is he not either in Charlie Angus's riding or near Charlie Angus's riding?
Yes. So, now, in fairness, does the Conservative leader visit every single Conservative riding? Yeah, at some point, probably. They're probably more concerned with ridings that they're either going to lose or, they want to gain, right? Because there's not really much point in visiting a strong, riding, because you want to use your time wisely, right? So,
right. Like they probably won't be visiting Jamil Giovanni's riding because it's a very strong Conservative riding.
Right. And they just voted for him. So.
Right.
But you can bet that Pierre will be visiting Toronto St. Paul because they want to keep that. But it says something that he hasn't been there in 6 years.
That's
and
significant.
With diminishing NDP support, right? That's the point.
That's the key. That's the key.
Well, I know people have seen the impact of having a conservative, and they know that Doug Ford has done what conservatives always do: cut and gut the services that people need. I think it's great evidence for exactly what conservatives are about. Instead of building homes, what did Doug Ford propose? He wanted to sell off public land to his rich developer buddies.
Wait a minute. He wanted to sell off public land to rich developers to build homes
that we desperately need. Yeah. And another thing, and I hate it when the politicians do this, is that the Conservatives at the federal level and the Conservatives at the provincial level, they're two completely different parties. They just share the same name.
Different agendas, different parties, different everything.
Different responsibilities.
You might as well call one the Mule Party and one the Rhino Party. Like that's...
We have a Rhino Party in Canada.
We do, and they're just not in government.
Do you know what you get with conservatives? Corruption. You get people that are more interested in helping out the rich buddies, and they show it with their actions. This is exactly what conservatives do. They've cut education. They've cut healthcare. Healthcare has been worse ever here in the province because of conservative. So you know that Pierre Poilievre is going to do exactly the same thing. He's going to cut healthcare. He's going to cut pensions. He's going to cut EI. It's going to hurt. Conservatives hurt people, and who they help out? Their rich buddies. The rich are doing really well. Corporate Canada is doing incredibly well. But everyday families are hurting.
Corporate Canada is doing very well. And remind me which governing party is handing out all this corporate welfare that the NDP are currently propping up.
And voting for.
Right. It's not the Conservatives. I don't think they're in government.
No. And they're not the ones proposing all of these bailouts. Who's the one who supported all of these refrigerators being handed out to Loblaws?
Right. Jagmeet's sworn enemy.
Right? Like, it's yeah. So it's not the Conservatives, and he's saying, oh, they're going to cut healthcare, they're going to cut pensions, they're going to cut this. Okay, what would you cut, Jagmeet? Because there's cuts that have to be made.
Well, and that's the thing. I don't think Pierre Poilievre has said specifically yet what he is going to cut, because we know cuts need to be made because our budget this year alone is $60 billion in the hole. I mean, that's huge. You cannot run a family budget when you're constantly in debt, and the government cannot run a budget where they're constantly in debt. Something has to give.
Well, and the fact that the government has not issued any widespread review, any widespread initiative to optimize their internal processes, to eliminate waste, especially considering the public, service procurement processes. Like, there's a lot of opportunity there. They don't have to cut some of their programs to get rid of that, but they're not even doing that. This is a government that is literally on its last legs. They know it. It's like they're about to, leave their crappy apartment behind, and they don't bother cleaning it, and they just, put their finger up at the people that are moving in and walk out the door, to hell with everybody.
Because Canadians are going to have to clean up this mess for the next, I don't even know how many years.
Justin Trudeau has been a failure, and Conservatives in Ontario have been a failure. People have seen that. And I put to you that Pierre Poilievre will be no different. He's going to cut the things you need. He's not going to take on the problems, the corporate greed that is hurting you and your families. He's not going to stop them. Those are his buddies. Those are who he worked for. You Democrats have been committed to fighting for people, and we've gotten stuff done. In this past couple of years, we've been able to bring in dental care. We've been able to bring in Pharmacare. We're going to make a difference in people's lives. Those two concrete things that are already improving people's lives, and we're going to keep on fighting for more.
Provincial NDP here in Ontario had their best shot. I want to say it was not this past election, but the election before that. Like, we knew people who were convinced that the NDP were going to win, and the Conservatives got a majority.
Yep.
So
and that's because Canadians, especially Ontario, but Canadians in general, know that you never, ever, ever want the NDP in power. Why?
Bob Rae is why.
Because they will spend with reckless abandon.
Like, worse than the Liberals are right now.
Right, because they don't care about fiscal policy. They don't have one.
Well, they think money grows on trees. I mean, they promise all this stuff and have no idea how it's going to get paid for.
Well, they don't even care because they know they're going to be voted out at some point, and they're just like, oh, well, we did all these things. At what cost?
It's been amazing. I think Jagmeet will probably have spent more time in Northern Ontario on this one trip than Pierre Poilievre spent in Glass 4. Because who does Pierre Poilievre come and speak to? His little rage mob. He hasn't bothered ever to meet with any First Nation communities in our region. Imagine that. He hasn't gone underground in the mines. He hasn't met with municipal leaders because he doesn't care. He doesn't want to hear the facts. So he shows up, stands outside, announces a billboard attacking me personally, then gets on the plane and buggers off and goes someplace else. So come on back, Pierre, anytime. We won this riding 7 times in a row. Wait for number 8. It's because we're committed here. We've got roots here. Jagmeet is meeting people, and we're building the team because we don't take this area for granted, not like Pierre Poilievre.
So Charlie Angus has actually announced his retirement. He's not going to be running for re-election come the next election. And the riding that he was previously in, which was Timmins James Bay, has been changed to Kapiskasing Timmins Mushkegowik. Which is actually a toss-up right now, according to 338canada.com, between the NDP and the Conservatives, and the Conservatives are only trailing by 2%. So really it could go either way.
Gee, I wonder why Charlie Angus resigned. Just saying. Can't take an actual hard fight there, Charlie.
Well, and I love how he calls Pierre's fans, what, an anger mob?
Rage mob.
Rage mob. Yeah, so I guess we're part of the rage mob representing Southern Ontario.
And again, who are the people dividing Canadians?
Right?
Like, Exhibit A.
Canadians support Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives because they're the only party making sense right now. You guys could either see what they're doing and try to replicate that, or you guys can call us a rage mob.
They have chosen option number 2. But again, remember when Jagmeet said, that everyone needs to dial down the political rhetoric?
I'm worried about the increase of that in the political form in general. I'm worried about that polarization.
I guess Charlie Angus didn't get the memo.
Well, neither did the NDP.
You've been able to get a lot done with your deal with the Liberals in terms of things like pharmacare, dental care, and that kind of thing. If this area turns out to turn conservative federally, how much influence do you think the NDP would be able to have with the with the Conservatives? If we vote you in NDP, what would you be able to get done?
Well, I want to point out just the difference. You know, what do we spend our time doing? When New Democrats are given a chance at power, we use it for people, and we've shown that. We found a way to make sure we can get people, seniors, their dental care. I think about the people that I've met and the difference it's made in their lives. I think about Sue, whose name is Susan, but she insists I call her Sue. And I met her in Ottawa. And I met her at a dentist office. And she had just described to the dentist and the denturist that she had lost her teeth because of cancer. She's a cancer survivor, but she'd lost her teeth. And she had a picture of her smile. She said to the dentist and the denturist, I just want my smile back. And the dentist and the denturist looked her in her eyes and said, we're going to get you that smile back. And she broke down in tears of joy, saying, I didn't know if this card would actually work, but now hearing that, I'm so excited to get my smile back. That's who we've helped. And Pierre Poilievre, what's his response to Sue? He wants to take that dignity away from her. He's already said there would be no dental care under Pierre Poilievre. He wants to attack seniors who are, for the first time in their life, some of them being able to look after their teeth. He wants to attack Sue, a cancer survivor who's going to get her smile back. He doesn't want her to get her smile back. That's who Pierre Poilievre is. That's the type of person he is. And who we are is we use our power for people. Anytime we have an opportunity, we're going to fight for people. So Tommy Douglas did, bringing in universal health care. That's what New Democrats do. We use our power for people. And we're going to fight like hell to make sure we defend what we fought for and we get more for people. And that means taking on the corporate greed. We know that's a major concern right now. Big corporations are ripping off people. How do we expect everyday folks to stand up to these powerful corporations? Well, that's what government should be for. Justin Trudeau's failed to do it. Pierre Poilievre is going to put fuel on that fire. We're going to fight back and say, no, let's change the rules to lift up people, to give them more protection, to have severe penalties for rich corporations that dare to rip off Canadians. We're going to put in place severe penalties. We're going to make sure we bring down the price of groceries, not hoping that there'll be some trickle down. Directly go after the corporate groceries that are jacking up the price of your groceries, that are ripping you off and making record profits. We're going directly at them and saying, no, the corporate greed ends here. We're going to slice the price of groceries by going after the greedy CEOs and bringing down your grocery prices. That's what we're about.
I'd really love to hear how you're going to do that.
I have a suggestion. Get rid of the carbon tax. Instead of supporting the Liberals and this craziness, why don't you guys get rid of the carbon tax? Because that will bring down the price of groceries. And the other thing, we've discussed this at length about the record profits. Yeah, if you look at dollars and cents, then yeah, grocery stores are making record profits. However, if you look at the profit margins, they're the same. They're between 4% and 6%, the way they have been for the last, I don't even know how many years. And the reason that the dollar value is going up is because inflation. So everything costs more. It's costing the grocery store more to put that stuff on the shelf, but they're still selling it to you with a 4% profit margin, or 4 to 6%, I should say correctly. And the other thing is that we've got how many more million Canadians in this country right now? Of course, things are going to be more expensive. Of course, the grocery stores are going to have record profits because they're selling more, because there's more people to feed.
Well, and this is the thing that really just rattles my cage, is that Jagmeet pretends that inflation doesn't exist. And then the hypocrisy of, well, we've used our power to help the Canadian people, but Trudeau hasn't done that. Okay, so if you actually had any power, you could force Trudeau to do that, and you haven't. So therefore, you're choosing not to use your power to do that.
Yeah, they're just going along for the ride.
Or you don't have any power at all, or at least very, very little. So, and they
have the power right now to defer an election for the Liberals. They have the power to defer the election so that Jagmeet Singh gets his pension and makes Canadians suffer in the process. That's the power that they have, and that's the power that they're using.
Well, and the problem with the NDP is the power that they have, if they did use it, they would be using it to give it away. And they don't want that, do they? Because it's all about them being in the limelight, them feeling like, we can actually do something, rather than doing or aligning their actions to the will of the Canadian people.
Yeah, because they're going to end up as minivan status after the next election.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, why would you give away all those seats?
But like, and the last thing, you know, that I'll touch on with these comments is he said, well, you know, Pierre's going to cut this and he's going to cut that. Yeah, he has to, because you guys keep spending money. And he was really transparent right there. Well, we're not going to take anything away. We're going to defend what you have and add more. Meaning spend with reckless abandon. Right.
And who's going to pay for that? Working families.
Well, and that's the thing. Meanwhile, you know, Jagmeet's going to ride off in his minivan into the sunset with his Rolex. Yeah, thanks a lot. You're really for the people.
Let's go to the next question.
Okay. Bob McIntyre from Vista Radio. This question is actually for my stations in Alberta, and they want your reaction to Danielle Williams not adopting the dental care plan.
Well, Daniel Smith in Alberta. Daniel Smith in Alberta is just like Pierre Poilievre. Both of them think it makes sense to go and attack a senior that's getting their teeth fixed for the first time in their life. The first question I ask is why? Why does Daniel Smith think that Sue, a cancer survivor senior living on a pension, doesn't deserve to get her teeth looked after? Why?
I'll answer that. It's not that Sue doesn't deserve to get her teeth fixed. It's that Sue has a home and a pension versus Dave and Jane who live in a frickin' tent. How about that?
Right. Like the working homeless, right? We hear that phrase very often, and it's people who have a full-time job or a part-time job, often a good job, that cannot afford housing in this insane housing market. And that, again, was caused by the NDP supporting the Liberals and their crazy policies in terms of housing and in terms of population.
Yeah, like NDP voters, this is how out of touch your leader is. He's prioritizing dental care over homes.
Or food.
Or food, yeah.
25% of Canadians are living in poverty. And Jagmeet Singh, he has never even mentioned that statistic that I've heard. And instead, he's focused on dental care. How about we lift Canadians out of poverty instead of taxing them into oblivion?
Why, Daniel Smith? Why don't you think kids whose parents can't afford to take them to the dentist, why those kids don't deserve to go? Why? Why are you going to attack people that just want the same dignity that you have, to be able to have a smile, to be able to have healthy teeth, to be able to eat their food? Why would you want to attack them? Why do conservatives want to attack vulnerable people? Why is it that what they do? Why do they always punch down? I want to say we're not going to let Daniel Smith stop this dental care program. Well, you know what we're going to do also? Nad Nenshi and the Alberta NDP are going to stop Daniel Smith.
Did the Alberta NDP leader not say that he wants nothing to do with the federal NDP, or that he's not associated with them, or something in order to make that separation?
I'll take C, all of the above. Yes. And we're not going to let Daniel Smith... guess what, Jagmeet? It's a provincial affair. You can't stop them.
Well, and this is what happens when federal parties, federal governing parties, because that's what the NDP are. They're in a coalition government with the Liberals. But this is what happens when federal governing parties just skip over the provinces and try to do things on the ground level. They can't do that. They can't just skip over the provincial jurisdiction. If you guys try to work with the provinces, you know, as we discussed in our recent video with the premiers, I think you guys would have better results.
Well, and again, the premiers have talked about this. Many provinces have these programs in place, whether it be, you know, dental, Pharmacare, whatever. There's some form of it, meaning there's already infrastructure and administrative people in place to make it work. What you're doing is implementing a side-by-side program, redoing and duplicating all of that infrastructure and support needed to make the program work. What the provinces are saying is, you guys are morons. You should be coming to us, working with us, and then all you have to do is give us the money. And then the program scales up. You don't have to start from scratch to do it, which would be 10 times as expensive. So, they're all up there saying, oh, well, the provinces don't want to do this. They don't want people to do this. They already have programs in place. Why don't you want to augment them and make that every dollar go that much further? Why?
Because they can't claim glory. They can't say,
right.
oh, it was our idea. We
Right.
implemented it. I mean, look what he's doing is touring Northern Ontario, touting dental care and no doubt Pharmacare. And like, why?
I'll tell you why. Because every single one of these programs, and they've done it this way, they are looking for a political fight. They're looking for a narrative to say, well, the provinces don't want to do this. The provinces don't want to do that. The Conservatives don't want to do this. The Conservatives don't want to do that. The two main targets of Trudeau and Singh, think about it. Across Canada, they don't talk about Andrew Furey. They don't talk about Blaney in New Brunswick. They talk about who? Daniel Smith and Doug Ford.
And Pierre Poilievre.
But they talk about Daniel Smith and and Doug Ford to attack Pierre Poilievre. That's why. So they're constantly going after Alberta and Ontario so that they use that as a narrative to try and attack Pierre. And the wonderful thing is it's obviously not working. And all you're doing is giving Danielle Smith a lot of airtime, which is making people respect her even more. And some people are even now respecting Ford a little more, which is amazing because not really many people respect Doug Ford.
Yeah, aren't they slated for another majority?
Right. And it's because you're forcing Ford to basically fight against Trudeau. Well, guess what who everybody hates? Justin Trudeau. So you're handing the Conservatives in Ontario an easy majority win just by making him pick a fight with you. Like, the NDP have to be the dumbest political strategy party I've actually ever seen to date.
They are, because if they weren't, then we would have had an election by now.
Yeah. And the Ontario government probably wouldn't be in such a comfortable majority. And Danielle Smith wouldn't be getting as much airtime.
What are your thoughts on Joe Biden dropping out of the presidential race and the likelihood of Kamala Harris becoming the new Democratic nominee?
Thanks so much for the question. Yeah, first off, I want to just underline that President Biden has been, as many have said, probably one of the most pro-worker presidents in a generation. One of the first to show up at a picket line to support working people, but also looking at his policies, really committed to making sure any investments at the federal level are tied to good jobs. He's been very clear to say union jobs and good wages, something that we also fought for. In first of its kind in Canada, we've got tax credits that Charlie Angus and our team were a big part of fighting for, tax credits that are directly tied to good wages, prevailing wages, tied to good jobs and apprenticeships. That's something the New Democrats believe. We don't believe in giving away blank checks to big corporations like Conservatives, like Harper did, for those corporations to take that money, shut down shop, and leave the country.
Remind me again, which party is the one handing out the corporate welfare and which party is the one supporting them in the House?
Yeah, and I love that Jagmeet is criticizing Harper for giving companies money to make it through the 2008 financial crisis.
Well, like, why are the Liberals paying, what was it, $13 billion for a battery plant? Why did they give Loblaws $12 million to buy freezers?
Right.
And who votes alongside the Liberals in the House? I don't think it's Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives.
Nope. They have voted hundreds of times by now against every single money-related bill or vote for the Trudeau government. So there's only one, and that's the NDP.
Looking at BC, it looks like David Eby is on track for another term there. Of course, Wab Kinew became NDP premier in Manitoba. In Saskatchewan, polls showing that that the party also looking to see some gains this fall. And in Alberta, Naheed Nenshi saying he wants to examine whether the Alberta NDP stays united with the federal branch of the party. We're seeing a lot of success and momentum building with the NDP in Western Canada provincially, but federally that doesn't seem to be the case. Looking at the polls, of course, in Saskatchewan, the party has 0 seats right now, only 2 in Alberta and a handful in Manitoba and BC. Why do you think that is? Why do you think the provincial NDP is succeeding in areas where the federal branch is struggling?
I'd say we've built a strong brand across the country, formed government in BC, and BC is where the province we have the most number of MPs right now in our caucus. So we've got a lot of BC support.
Did you see Charlie?
Hilarious. Just kind of be like, man, what are you talking about?
He's like, dude, have you checked the polls lately? We're freaking down.
Oh, man.
Like, if your brand was so strong, why are you now at like 16, 17%? In January, you were at like 21.
Yeah, when we had called it was like January, February, before the boundary change, maybe even as late as March. They could have potentially been the official opposition had they called an election before the boundary change and then campaigned really, really, really hard. They could have been official opposition.
Yeah, they could have absolutely destroyed the Liberals' chances of being the official opposition, because at that point it would have been the NDP and the Conservatives blasting the Liberals.
Right. So theoretically, all those seats that the Liberals would have lost, the NDP could have picked up. But because the NDP have been supporting the Liberals, and they're the ones keeping the Liberals in government, and Canadians know that, now everybody is losing seats to the Conservatives.
Well, and the NDP has also displayed that they're reneging on their promises to their own convention, party members.
Yeah, whatever happened to we will settle for nothing less than universal single-payer Pharmacare. And what they've gotten 2 classes of medications, and they're not even legislated. That's the thing they're not telling Canadians. We did a video on this too a while back, where in the bill itself, it says that they will sit down and discuss the opportunity to create another bill for Pharmacare.
Yep.
It's ridiculous.
And but they are going to spend a whole bunch of money to set up a new agency to discuss what drugs go in there. So they're going to be hiring a whole bunch more public servants in order to do that.
That's what we need.
And we've seen great breakthroughs where people have seen the horrible impact of Conservatives. In Manitoba, they rejected Conservatives. They rejected the Conservative, the Stephenson government and the Pallister government before that, who cut and got healthcare. People lived to that and say, you know what? No, we don't want any more of that. We saw that in Saskatchewan. We're seeing the cuts are finally hurting people so much that they're saying, we got to look for an alternative.
This is so funny that he is now trying to ride the coattails of the provincial NDP parties. Jagmeet, everybody knows the deal. Everybody knows you're a separate party than the provincial parties. Why do you think the provincial parties are like, we're not with them. We're not with that disaster that is run by Jagmeet Singh. We're our own party.
Well, and I think that there's not a heck of a lot that the NDP can really do at the federal level, because, I mean, let's think about what the federal level is responsible for. Things like defense, borders, immigration.
Yeah, it's not their jurisdiction.
No, but things like healthcare and education, which are provincial, I think those are areas where the provincial NDP can really excel in.
Right.
I think they can sell that to their voters, and I think they do have the potential to do a good job in those areas. I wouldn't vote NDP, but that's just me.
I agree, because that's the arena that the NDP platform is built around, right?
Right.
It's built around healthcare, dental care, pharmacare, affordable housing. All of those are either provincial or municipal issues. None of those are typically handled primarily at the federal level. Now, the federal government is responsible for supporting those, but it's really the core competency of the provincial governments. And obviously, Canadians can see that, because that's why Manitoba chose to vote in an NDP provincial government. We'll see how that works out, but the last time there was an NDP government in Ontario, it was a frickin' disaster, which is why we haven't had one since.